Good evening, grade 11. So, I'm Miss Riza Sahagun, Miss Riza na lang. So, ako yung isang teacher sa 21st century. Kasama ko si Miss Vicente. So, last time, Miss Vicente tackled about the literary periods in the Philippines. So, natandaan ko, sabi niya, yung mga nanalo daw or mga naka-perfect sa quiz niya or dun sa activity niya or sa games niya ay magkakaroon ng house and lot. So, puntahan niyo na lang si Manny Villar para bigyan kayo ng house and lot. So, yan. Wala pa ako mabibigay na house and lot. House and lot sa paso. Yon, pwede yon. Okay. So, last time, diniscuss yung tatlong literary periods in the Philippines. Number 1 is yung pre-colonial period. Next is Spanish period. And then the American period. So for today, we will discuss about the Japanese period. So before we start, I want to panoorin nyo muna yung isang video about the Japanese period. Okay, so Ayan. So, kung naintindihan niyo yung video kanina, so dinidiscuss do'n or pinapakita yung kung papaano tayo nasakop ng mga Japanese or mga Hapon. So, nangyari yon during World War II. So, binomba ng mga sundalong Hapon ng Pilipinas noong December 8, 1941 after nilang bombahin yung Pearl Harbor. So kung meron kayong mga kilalang ano, 'di ba, yung mga lolo't lola natin, merong nabuhay during World War II. So bumagsak yung pamahalaan ng Pilipinas, then umatras sila President Manuel L. Quezon kasama si MacArthur. So pinasok ng mga sundalong Hapones yung Pilipinas. Yan. So, doon din naganap yung Death March or ito yung Marcha ng Kamatayan. So, maraming mga Pilipino na sundalo at Amerikano at inchik ang namatay. Siyempre, ikaw ba naman maglakad ng napakahaba na walang kain, tapos sobrang init pa, mamamatay ka talaga, di ba? So, after na mga pangyayari na yon, bumalik si MacArthur, di ba? So, yun nga yung famous line niya na, I shall return. So, nung dumating siya, kasama niya yung mga sundalong Pilipino at saka Amerikano, doon nag-umpisa yung digmaan. So, marami din nasawi, maraming buhay ang nawala. So, yun yun. Doon nag-end yung pagsakop. Next. So, the Japanese period and the Republic. So, ano man nangyari? First bullet, the Philippine literature came into a halt. So, sabi diyan, during Spanish period, pinahinto nila yung paggawa ng mga Philippine literature. So, bakit? Siyempre, baka mamaya maging ano sa kanila yun, parang hindrance, di ba? Kaya pinahinto nila. Then, the use of English language was forbidden and the use of the Filipino language was mandated under the Japanese rule. So, pinagbawal din nila yung paggamit ng wikang English, 'di ba? So, bago tayo sakupin ng mga Hapones, yung mga American muna. So, nung dumating mga Japanese, karaniwang ginagamit ng mga Filipino na language is English. So dito, nung time na ng Hapon, ng mga Hapones, ang pinagbawal na yung English language and then dapat nilang gamitin ay yung Filipino language na lang. Okay. Next, for some this was a problem, but to most writers, it was a blessing in disguise. Almost all newspaper were stopped except for some. So halos lahat ng mga newspapers pinahinto ng mga Hapon, pero may mga mangilan-ngilan lang na pinayagan. And then may mga writers din na sa tingin nila parang problema yon kasi nga siyempre bago na naman yung pinaka-genre or gagamitin nilang language. Siyempre aaralin nila ulit yon. But most writers, ah, para sa kanila ay blessing in disguise nga daw yon. So, blessing siya. Ewan ko bakit. Yan. So, Filipino literature was given a break during this period. Many wrote plays, poems, short story, and etc. Topics and themes were often about life in the provinces. So, nung time na yon, Filipino literature, yung Filipino literature ay nabigyan ng pagkakataon. So, nabigyan ng break nung Japanese period. So, yung pinaka-theme daw nila nung Japanese period is about the life in the provinces o yung pamumuhay sa probinsya. So, yun yung pinaka-theme nila para sa literature. Next, so we have 5 forms of literature. Number 1 is poetry. Number 2, fiction. Next, drama. Number 4, newspaper. And essay. So first is, let us discuss about the drama. So when you say drama, the drama experience allowed during the Japanese period because movie houses showing American films were closed. The big movie houses were just made to show as stage shows. Many of the plays were reproduction of English plays to Tagalog. So, yung drama ah, yung ginamit na drama or yung drama during the Japanese period, nawala yon o humina. Dahil nga nagsara kasi nga yung mga pinapalabas doon mga American. So anong ginawa? So kanina nga binanggit ko, 'di ba? Ang ginagamit nilang language is American. So pinalitan ng yung show na yon or yung film na yon, parang tinranslate nila into Tagalog. So from English plays to Tagalog or English drama to Tagalog. So, ayun. Next naman is yung newspaper. So, writings that came out during this period were journalistic in nature. Writers felt suppressed, but slowly the spirit of nationalism started to seep into their consciousness. While some continued to write, the majority waited for a better climate to publish their works. So, during Japanese period, maraming mga writers ang pinatigil magsulat kasi ilan lang yung mga dyaryo nga na pinapayagan na ilabas. Yan. Next, poetry. So, the common theme of most poems during the Japanese occupation was nationalism, country, love, and life in the barrios, faith, religion, and the arts. So, poetry, the common themes for poems during Japanese was nationalism or tungkol sa pagkamakabayan, tungkol sa bansa, pagmamahal at buhay sa baryo nga or sa mga probinsya sa kanilang and then sa kanilang religion at pananampalataya or faith. Yan. And especially the art. Next is fiction. So, fiction, the field of short story, widened during the Japanese occupation. So many wrote short stories. So during this period, the short story widened o mas lumawak at maraming mga writers ang nagsulat ng short story. Next. So, in Japanese period, we have three types of poems emerged during this period. So, number one is haiku. Familiar ba kayo sa haiku? Alam ko, tinuro to ng junior high. Okay. So, what is haiku? So, haiku poems have only 3 lines and 17 syllables. The poems follow the pattern. So, for example, sa haiku meron daw na 3 lines. Ayan. And then, sa bawat linya, may bilang. So, sa unang linya, merong 5 syllables. Sa ikalawa naman, ay merong 7 syllables. Then, line number 3, 5 syllables. Okay. So, 5, 7, 5. So, 17 syllables. So, for example, ayan. So, will we meet again here at your flowering grave, 2 white butterflies. So, kapag gusto nyong bilangin yung pinaka-syllables niya, pwede kayong magbilang sa kamay nyo. Pwede nyong gamitin o kaya pumalakpak kayo. So, bibilangin nyo yung bawat syllable. So, try natin. For example, yung first line na we will meet again. So, will we meet again. So, 5 syllables. Next line, the second line, here at your flowering grave. Here at your flowering grave. Next, yung last one, 575. So, 2 white butterflies. So, yun yung sukat ng haiku. Next naman I saw 2 seagulls and a red bird in a tree, waiting there for spring. So, yun yung sinusunod na pattern in haiku. Sa haiku din, ang common theme niya is about nature. So, halata naman, di ba? So, kunyari dito, sa first example, so, we will meet again here at your flowering grave. Diba? Flowering grave, then white butterflies. Next yung, I saw 2 seagulls. Seagulls, red bird in a tree, and spring. So, yun yung about sa nature. Next. So, next, after ng haiku, meron tayong tinatawag na tanaga. So, a quatrain with 7 syllables, each with the same rhyme at the end of each line. So, sa tanaga, kung kanina sa haiku, meron siyang 17 syllables, sa kada line ay merong 5, 7, 5. Ayan. So, dito naman sa tanaga, meron siyang 7 syllables. And then, kada line, meron siyang 7 syllables, yun nga. So, each line, merong 7 syllables. Okay, so, eto, bilangin nyo kung 7 syllables yung kada line. Tahak ng tingin, tulak. Tahak ng tingin, tulak. Okay, tama. Next, ng sulyap, yakap, lapat. Okay. Ng titig sa balikat. Next, hatak pa, hindat, hakat. Okay. Ayan. Next naman. So, karaniwang anyo or the usual form for poetry. So, the usual and a common form of poetry. Ito naman si karaniwang anyo, ito yung pre-verse. So, wala naman siyang sinusunod na mga lines, walang sinusunod na syllables kung ilang syllables. Ulitin ko lang yung sa Tanaga ay kailangan sa kada end ng line niya, kailangan magkakatunog. Okay? Or magkaka-rhyme. For example, dito sa first line, tahak ng tingin tulak. Yung susunod, ng sulyap, yakap, lapat. So, tulak, lapat. Di ba? Sorry. Okay. Okay, next. Lapat, balikat, hakat. Next. So, next is essay. Ano naman yung essay? So, essay were composed to glorify the Filipinos and at the same time to figuratively attack the Japanese. So, pagdating sa essay, ang nilalaman ay tungkol sa mga papuri sa mga Pilipino at the same time about sa pag-atake ng mga Japanese. So, yun yung pinakanilalaman ng kanilang essay. So, next is the literature of the Philippines today. So, ito na yung 21st century. So, in the 21st century Philippines, there are a lot of literary innovations that are adapted and created by Filipinos. Nowadays, even those who do not have any significant literary background make their own way using the freedom that they have to write and to express. There are a lot of new forms from basic genres of literature, thus proving how far the literature in the Philippines has gone and for it will go on from here. So sabi diyan, during the 21st century literature in the Philippines, maraming mga pagbabago ang nangyari sa ating literature. So maybe because of the technology, di ba? So ang laki ng tulong para ma-improve or ma-innovate yung literature natin. So malaya tayong nakakapagsulat at nai-express kung ano yung mga nasa isip natin, ano yung mga opinion, at ano yung mga nararamdaman. So, iba't ibang klase ng genre ng literature yung nababasa natin. Unlike dati, di ba? For example, ng Japanese period, may specific theme lang yung literature. For example, sa drama, di ba? O kaya sa poem, dapat tungkol lang sa nature. O kaya dapat tungkol sa life in the provinces. So, yun yun. So, pero ngayon, iba't ibang genre or iba't ibang klase ng literature yung nababasa natin. Next, what is the 21st century? So, the 21st century is the current century of the Anno Domini era or Common Era in the accordance with the Gregorian calendar. It began on January 1, 2001 and will end on December 31, 2100. So, it is the first century of the third millennium. So, meron ako nabasa, totoo naman, na Etong 21st century ay ang century daw ng mga senior high school. Siyempre, pinanganak naman na kayo siguro niyan, no? So, si 21st century, nag-start siya noong January 2001 at matatapos siya sa December 31, 2100. Okay. So, we have literary genres in the 21st century. Number one is creative nonfiction. Number two, hyper poetry. Number three, mobile phone text tula. Next, chick lit. Next, speculative fiction. Next, flash fiction. Then, blog, graphic novels, digifiction, manga, and then doodle fiction. Meron pa yan eh. Okay. So the first literary genre in the 21st century is the creative nonfiction. When you say creative nonfiction, it is a rich mix of flavors, ideas, and techniques, some of which are newly invented and others as old as writing itself. So, creative nonfiction can be an essay, a journal, article, a research paper, a memoir, or a poem. It can be a personal or not. So in creative nonfiction, writers gives factual information in a creative ways. So marami siyang iba't ibang klase ng creative nonfiction. Pwedeng essay, journal, ah, research paper, or a memoir, or the autobiography, or pwede siyang personal o kaya pwedeng hindi. Ayan. So that is creative non-fiction. Next naman is the hyper-poetry or the hypertext poetry. So hyperpoetry is a new genre of literature that uses the computer screen as a medium rather than the printed page. So the literary works rely on the qualities unique to a digital environment such as a link, World Wide Web, pages, or effects such as a sound and movement. So in hyperpoetry, it is a new genre, sabi nga, di ba, of literature that uses the computer screen as a medium. So dito, so karamihan sa mga hyper poems ay mababasa or can be read directly on the web. So I have here an example of hyper poetry or the hyper text poetry. Okay. So after the hyper poetry, we have the textula or textula. Hindi ko alam paano siya i-pronounce. Pero textula. So, when you say textula, the term textula is blend of the English word text and the Filipino word tula. So, meaning text poem, it is a poem written in the form of text messages, usually consisting of one or two stanzas. It is sent as direct communication to a person close to the sender. Two examples are presented on the next page. So, textula, pinaghalong English word na text at Filipino word na tula, na ibig sabihin text poem or tula na isinusulat in the form of text messages. So, binubuo daw siya ng one or two stanzas. Yung tekstula, sinesend mo siya sa isang tao na kung saan malapit siya sa'yo. Pwedeng, relationship, yan. Dati, nauso yan nung year 2000, yung hindi pa Android, yung mga Nokia pa lang, yung dipindot pa lang yung keypad. So, maraming mga nagpapadala ng mga ganyan. So, text. Ngayon ko lang na laman din na ang tawag pala doon is textula. So, yun, mini-message nila. So, minsan nagbibigay ng poem o kaya mga inspiring na quotes. Ayan. So, tawag doon ay textula. So, here's the example. Ayan. So, if missing you is a crime, I'm guilty. I am not fine. I miss how we used to be. Please, oh please, come back to me. Okay. Next example. Yesterday, I fell in love with the boy who so much loved. And I know it from the start, he will tear my heart apart. Naunsa ka? Ayan. So, that is textula. Next is the chiclet or the, ayun nga. Chiclet it consists of heroine-centered narrative that focus on the trials and tribulations of their individual protagonists. It often addresses issues of modern womanhood, from romantic relationship to female friendship to matters in the workplace in humorous and light-hearted ways. When you say chick lit or the chick literature, ito naman, nakafocus naman siya sa issues about modern womanhood or sa madaling salita, yung pinaka-character dito is babae. So, tungkol siya sa mga pagsubok o paghihirap ng babae. So, ayan. Here's the example of best chick lit or chick literature. Ayan. Okay, next na tayo. Okay, for number 5 is the speculative fiction. So, when say speculative fiction, it is a type of story that deals with the observation of the human condition, but offers the experience through a different lens and challenges us to see what tomorrow could be like or what the mythic past of our imagination actually is. So, in speculative fiction, so meron tayong sa speculative fiction, ito yung kung familiar kayo sa mga sci-fi or science fiction, ayan, horror, fantasy, and supernatural fiction. So, this genre or this genre talks about the future, mga bagay na di natin inaakala pero pwede siyang mag-exist in the future. For example, sa sci-fi, may mga movies or may mga novels na parang mapapatanong ka, what if na, ano kaya mangyayari kapag ganito? Kunyari, kung dati, ang nakikita lang natin yung mga sasakyan sa, maandar lang sila sa, tawag dyan, sa lupa. Ayan. So, baka in the future, makita na tayo ng cars na or flying cars, di ba? So, dati nga, di ba, hindi naman, wala namang robot eh. So, bakit nakapag-invento sila, di ba? Ayan. Then next is superhero fiction. So, for example, yung sa superhero fiction naman, possesses superhuman powers, yung mga lumalaban sa mga masasama para iligtas ang mundo. Ayun. May mga superpowers. Ayan. And horror, of course. Ano ba ang purpose ng horror, 'di ba? Para takutin yung mga readers or yung viewers. Ayan. So, here's the example of speculative fiction. So, meron tayong Avengers. So, hello sa mga fan ng Avengers. Ayan, especially Black Panther, Wakanda Forever. Ayan. So, ayan yung mga super natural fiction. Then next, The Martian. Ayan, tapos 2012. The Martian, syempre, talks about the isang lalaki na nakalimutan ko kung naiwan ba siya or ano, pumunta talaga siya doon para manirahan sa Mars. Ayan. So, ilang days or hindi days eh, ilang months siya na tumira doon sa Mars. Ayun, nakaano naman siya. Ligtas naman siyang nakabalik. Pero parang mga 64 days ata yung tinagal niya sa Mars. And then, of course, the 2012. So, ayan. Yan yung mga possibilities na mangyayari kapag tingnan natin ang nature. Then, syempre, fantasy, magic, ayan, Harry Potter. Next is the Stephen King. The title is It. So, ayan, familiar naman kayo dyan, no? Si Pennywise. Ayan. So, that is for speculative fiction. Next is the flash fiction. When you say flash fiction, also known as a short stories, uh, stories no longer than 1,500 words in length, indeed, they're usually shorter than 1,000 words. They are designed to be read in 4 or 5 minutes. It is not easy to get an entire story across with so few words, but if the author does it well, flash fiction can be a very rewarding experience for both writers and readers. So, flash fiction, it is a style of writing which involves producing a very short story. Pero, ano ba pinagkaiba nito sa short story? Sa short story kasi may mga story o may mga pages na mahaba talaga. Hindi naman porket na tinawag siya na short story na talaga. Ito si flash fiction, short story talaga siya. Minsan, hindi siya umaabot pa ng, uh, 1,000 words niya. Minsan 250 na yata yung pinakamadami. Ayan. So, example. So, the title of the flash fiction is Angels and Blueberries by Tara Campbell. So, the first line, why is the sky blue? Why is the sky blue? You ask? Well, it all depends on who's answering. So, Campbell explanation for the color, meaning niyan, explanation for the color of the sky. One or which involves angels and blueberries, beside making you crave a fruit smoothie. So it opens your eyes to the delightful possibilities of imagination when we disregard science for a few minutes. Ayan, ano niya, explanation niya dun sa angels and blueberries. Okay, next is the blog. So, when you say blog, a blog is an online journal or informational website displaying information in the reverse of chronological order with the latest posts appearing first. It is a platform where a writer or even a group of writers share their views of an individual subject. So, when you say blog, it is a short term for of web and blog. So, kinuha lang yung letter B doon sa web. So, web blog. So, blog. So, website that contains online personal reflection, comments, and often hyperlinks, visuals, and ano pa, photographs provided by the writers. So, alam niyo naman, so marami na tayong napapanood ng mga vlogs, iba't ibang information, yung mga nalalaman natin. Then, na puwedeng makakatulong sa atin sa buhay natin. So, puwede tayong mag-comment, puwede tayong magbigay ng other views. Ayan. So, dapat yung blog is informative siya. Sabi nga, di ba dyan, online journal or informational website. So, itong ginagawa ko is an example of blog, di ba? After nito, i-download ko na lang upload ko pala sa YouTube. So, subscribe na lang guys. Yan. Mag-subscribe na lang kayo. Okay. So, next is blogging sites. We have WordPress, Google Blogger, TypePad, and Movable Type, and Drupal. Ayan. Next is the graphic novel. So when you say graphic novels, it is a narrative work in which the story conveyed to the reader using comic form. So the term is employed in a broad manner, encompassing non-fiction works and thematically linked short story as well as a fictional story across numbers of genre. So, binanggit dyan si comic, di ba? So, when you say graphic novel, same siya ni comic book. So, kaso ang pinagkaiba lang nila, si graphic novel is mas mahaba yung story. Kumbaga is long narrative siya. More on writings and pictures. So, nakakita naman kayo, di ba, ng comic. Halos magkaparehas siya. Pero, mas mahaba lang si graphic novels. And sa graphic novels, meron siyang beginning, middle, and ending sa story. Tapos, mas detalyado siya. Mas detalyado yung story at mas malalim at mas serious siya. Unlike kay comic, di ba parang sa comics pwedeng kahit sino pwedeng magbase. Di ba? Then, while the comic book, the story is about heroes and heroism, then mas maraming issues sa story ng comics. So, pares lang silang story. Then, sa comics or the graphic novels, ito, yung example niya. So, the graphic novel. And the comic. Next! So, yung isa dyan is comics, example. The next is the digifiction or the digital fiction. It is a literary experience that combines three media, which is book, movie or video, and internet website. In order to get the full story, student must engage in navigation, reading, viewing in all three parts. So, in digital fiction or digifiction, combines the three media which is the book, movie, and internet website. So bago magkaroon or bago ka maka-access or ayun nga, bago ka magkaroon ng access sa digifiction, kailangan meron ka munang dadaanang proseso. Meron kang pagdadaanan. Kailangan mong malaman muna may mga content do'n na kailangan babasahin mo muna siya. So, parang siya sa ML, 'di ba? Sa ML, 'di ba, bago ka makapaglaro or bago ka makapag-rank, meron ka munang dadaanan na mga level, ang gano'n, 'di ba? May babasahin ka do'n, yung story ni ganito, yung story ng hero na si Lilah, ganyan. So, pero hindi siya digifiction na. Example lang siya. So, paano ba nangyayari si digifiction or digital fiction? So, example niya is the 39 Clues website. So, upper and elementary middle school digifiction. So, ito yung process niya. So, first, read the book. Each books come with 6 clues. Visit the website, create an account, play a game, unlock a clue, read more, try to solve the mystery along with the characters, and win the prizes. So, yan yung digital fiction. May mga games din siya. And then, the manga. The manga. So, manga is the Japanese word for comics. It is used in the English-speaking world as a generic term for all comic books and graphic novels. Originally published in Japan, manga is considered an artistic and storytelling style. So, the term a merry manga is sometimes used to refer the comics created by American artists in a manga style. So, manga, Japanese word for comics. So, magkapares lang sila ni comic book at saka ni digifiction. So, manga originally published in Japan pero gamit nila for the story is English language. Siyempre, para mabasa din ng lahat, hindi lang sa bansa nila. Yan. Kung mapapansin nyo or kung nakabasa na kayo or na-experience nyo na magbasa ng manga, binabasa siya ng pabaligtad, 'di ba? Then, yung pinaka tawag dito, 'pag nagbasa kayo, hindi siya katulad ng comics na colored siya. Dito, sa manga, black and white siya. Ayan. Kasi sa comic book, ano siya, colorful, 'di ba? Kung napansin nyo. So, here's the example of manga. Ayan. Ayan yung pa-music ko. Okay, so ayan yung example ng manga. So, kung familiar kayo kay One Piece, ayan. Ayan yung, hanggang ngayon yata meron pa ring, nagbabasa neto. Kasi tagal na yan sobra yung One Piece. So, meron tayong Naruto, ayan, One Punch Man, and then syempre yung Slam Dunk. Ayan. Ayan, Dragon Ball. Nakalimutan ko tong title nito. And then, Doraemon. Meron akong naalalang kwento about sa Doraemon. Sabi, meron daw totoong Nobita talaga. So, parang nag-create siya. Kasi parang binubully siya. So, nag-create siya ng parang friend niya si Doraemon. And dahil binubully nga siya, nag-create siya ng sarili niyang kaibigan. And, nakalimutan ko na ano yung pinaka-story niya. Try niyong basahin. Ayan. Next is the doodle fiction. What is doodle fiction? So, a literary presentation where the author incorporates doodle, drawings, and handwritten graphics in a place of traditional font. Drawings enhance the story, often adding humorous elements that will be missing in the illustration were omitted. So doodles, it is a doodle drawings with handwritten graphics. So, ayan. Nakakatuwa siyang basahin yung mga story kahit simpleng-simple lang yung pinaka-drawing. Hindi siya katulad ng comics na detalyado talaga yung pagkaka-drawing, 'di ba? Pero dito kay Doodle Fiction, ayan. Ayan yung example niya. Parang natural lang na nag-drawing ka sa isang notebook mo. Ayan. 'Di ba parang kahit lang, parang stick lang siya. Tapos nilagyan lang yung tatlong buhok. Ayan. So, example is the diary of a wimpy kid. Ayan. Next is the illustrated novels. When you say illustrated novels, generally 50% of the narrative is presented without words. So the reader must interpret the images in order to comprehend the complete story. Text, textual portions are presented in the sorry in traditional form. Some illustrated novels may contain no text at all. Illustrated novels span all genres. So, sa illustrated novels, 50% of the narrative presented without words. So, ibig sabihin, wala siyang 50% wala nga talagang words or mga text na ginagamit. So, more on features na kailangan mo i-interpret para mas maintindihan mo yung story. Kasi nga walang text, di ba? So, di katulad sa graphic novels na long narrative talaga siya. Sa illustrated naman, meron siyang iba't ibang genre. Next is, ayan, so example of Hugo Cabret and Arrival. Ayan. And then, ito, hindi ko siya alam kung, pero sinama ko na din siya. So, the Wattpad. So, alam ko maraming mga girls dito nakaka-relate. Ayan. So, Wattpad, it is an online storytelling community where users post written works such as articles, stories, fan fiction, and poems, either through the website or the mobile app. The user-generated content is submitted by writers of all levels who are given an equal chance to write popular works. So, dahil sa Wattpad na yun, maraming mga nakilalang mga author, tama? So, ang daming mga book na lumabas, di ba? Kung nakapagbasa na kayo. Dati nagbabasa ako noon eh, kasi may mga nakukumpiska akong mga book. So, binabasa ko siya. So, galing siya sa Wattpad. Then, ginawa siyang book. So, merong, dyan, trivia about Wattpad kung sino yung Nag-start daw yan sa dalawang engineering na mahilig magbasa. So, dalawang engineering, imagine niyo yan. So, gumawa sila. Dati ang language lang na ginagawa nila is English. And then, tumagal, nagkaroon ng Vietnamese, tapos Tagalog. So, hanggang sa nakilala, hanggang sa marami na yung nagsulat tungkol doon sa Wattpad. So, example of Wattpad, syempre, nung unang-unang, story na naging movie pa doon nakilala si Nadine at saka si James Reid, doon sila sa movie, diba? Yung diary ng pangit, diba? So, karoon pa ng iba't ibang part. Yan. So, So that's it for today, grade 11. So thank you for listening. So sana merong naintindihan. So kung may question, may mga hindi naintindihan, pwede kayong magtanong. So thank you very much.